consistent, and some of which can only be pursued in partnership and agreement with key players in the visitor industry and community due to budget, resource and product constraints. So in doing so, we've developed 3 overarching strategic objectives for the next year for the organisation, which will help us focus on the desired outcomes for our tourism industry and wider region. And as Scott alluded before, this is a reduction from the 6 that are in this current year's statement of intent. We also need to keep in mind the macro tourism trends, and we've talked a little bit about the global financial crisis. We've got an issue with our reliance on the Australian market. That visitor spend is declining a little bit. So what we need to do is adopt a strategy which allows greater flexibility in an ever-changing environment so we can maximise market share. That's what this is all about at the moment, is grabbing those people who are coming to New Zealand on an international basis and making sure that they come here to Taupo and making sure that we stay top of mind for the domestic travellers. So the overarching objectives that we've put, you've seen those in the statement of intent. But our primary purpose is to deliver more visitors to the region and to increase their length of stay and spend. Our number 1 objective is to build a stronger tourism economy for the Taupo region. And we've developed KPIs, which I'll run through shortly, which will reflect this and measure our effectiveness. Effective industry collaboration and consultation will result in increased participation and collective support from key stakeholder groups, increasing the overall effectiveness and performance of all industry stakeholders, including DGLT. This is all about working as a wider team to achieve objective number 1. While we have met the required elements in this current year SOI, we need to make a concentrated effort to bring our key stakeholders on board. We've already started with our first industry focus group and various other initiatives to increase awareness and support for DGLT activities. The district sites represent the largest single category of core DGLT expenditure and have been performing steadily. However, we need to continue to drive performance and subsequent revenue levels of these sites. There's lots of other objectives that fall under these, but these are the 3 overarching strategies that will drive all of our decision making and our marketing activity and decisions in the next year. So the nature and scope of our activities, we like to consider it best conceptually as grouped within 3 concentric circles. The innermost circle represents the ongoing core destination marketing activities that can be successfully delivered on a relatively independent basis. Things such as the visitor guides, the website digital development, regional marketing and advertising, where operators can choose to buy in dependent on their specific business's needs. We need to be more commercially focused in this area over time, and the board's reviewing the effectiveness of these activities funded for each of the key market segments and project activities. The circle of activity immediately adjacent to the core represents more formalised cluster activities such as the Convention Bureau and other joint venture marketing activity, both domestically and internationally. We've already talked about the $200,000 JV domestic campaign, where $100,000 was raised by industry and dollar matched by council. And as Scott has mentioned, this allowed us to achieve cut-through in a crowded domestic marketplace that we wouldn't have been otherwise able to do, with TV for the first time, high-profile billboard and national print campaigns. And we've had some positive feedback to date. More frequent and well-structured engagement processes will highlight when and how these joint venture partnerships could be implemented with industry, and it's DGLT's intention to continue with the joint industry council match funding model for the domestic market campaign to drive growth into our region for the coming years ahead. And the third and outermost circle represents longer-term investments by private and public sector stakeholders. This is to improve the range, the quality and value of our overall visitor experience, often described as destination management. In all 3 of these cycles, a plan, do and review cycle applies. Whilst it's the effectiveness of the activities undertaken, so the doing, which ultimately drive our success, we also need to invest well in the planning and review processes to better understand the competitive, social and environmental contexts so we can select and document the rationale for our key performance indicators. Research is critical to our long-term success. Again, we touched on this before, but we need to know what the stats actually mean. We need to know why we've been in decline, what are the visitors who don't come here, or the ones who are staying or coming less often, saying about our region? What's driving growth into other regions? Where are we losing market share, and what factors are driving that? We need to dig deeper into both the supply side and the demand side of these statistics to really understand and discover what we don't know before we can improve the effectiveness of our KPIs. So we can improve the effectiveness of our KPIs. And this will help us better understand what drives visitor decision making and ultimately spend our marketing dollar smarter. So by carefully measuring our performance indicators and having an ability to remain flexible in some of our marketing activity to adapt in an ever-changing market, we need to be able to demonstrate more value to our stakeholders. So I'll just click through some of the key performance indicators. We've talked about the CAM stats, the Commercial Accommodation Monitor, and we've already started some work on looking at other monitors, attraction monitors, Paymark, spend in town, talking with a few of those key stakeholders to develop a bigger picture view of what's happening here in Taupo. Brand recognition there is about achieving the visitors that are coming to Taupo, that they've seen our logo, they've seen some of our advertising, they're familiar with our brand look and feel. Moving on to the next one, increased stakeholder engagement. We've already started to up the ante in this area. We can't do this without industry partnering with us. We need Team Taupo going out there, singing from the same songbook and working together. We need to grow industry investment and participation. We'll be much more effective if we can pool our marketing dollars and market Taupo consistently by linking back to our branding and key messages. And it's absolutely vital that we keep industry up to date with what we're doing. Utilise their industry experience. It adds to our brain pool. It also helps build satisfaction and engagement with our stakeholders. And as for the eyesight network, to drive this further, we need to commit to the time, and therefore it's a top 3 objective for the board. Given the current economic environment, it's getting hard to get visitors to spend. They're deal focused. They spend less than what they once did. What we're hearing anecdotally is that visitors are becoming more selective now. They're saying, yes, I want to do a jet boat ride, but where is the best place to do it in New Zealand? Instead of in the past, they said, well, I'll do Hooker Falls jet, shot over jet, and another one somewhere along the way. So it is changing. We've heard about some of the success that the eyesight here in Taupo has achieved with increasing revenues despite the declining visitor numbers, but we need to ensure our marketing is aligned with the eyesights in terms of a call to action and creating creative and value for money packages which help drive demand for visitation to our region, particularly in those shoulder seasons and midweek. In terms of the governance, the board's role is to guide the organisation through effective strategic planning and also responding to issues and opportunities as they arrive. We have a board that has been appointed based on their skills, experience and attributes, and it's been important to have the variety of those skills around the table, particularly in the time of transition to the new organisation. I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the investment of time by our board members, particularly our chairman, Seamus O'Sullivan, who has been spending up to 30 hours a week of his time working through statistics, governance structure and other pressing issues, which will ultimately help us achieve our organisational objectives. But he's not the only one. The board has adopted a portfolio approach with each board member taking on accountability for up to 2 areas of responsibility, which include audit and risk, strategy and resource allocation, industry engagement, stakeholder communications, IT, web marketing and media marketing. Scott has effectively gained another 6 experienced professionals to be part of the DGLT team. We've taken on a stakeholder focus, which should be evident through our key objectives, and we will engage at all levels. So, board remuneration, we've put the proposal in there. Council has investigated the respective remuneration levels for similar-sized RTOs and organisations around the country. In making a recommendation, we had to be mindful of the size of DGLT's budget, and therefore the proposal sets the remuneration at approximately half or at the very low end of governance remuneration for similar-sized RTOs and organisations. We consider the rates to be reasonable, and given the level of expertise sitting around the board table and the commitment both in time and passion demonstrated by board members to date, good value for DGLT. The board is committed to transparency and also being held accountable for service and offering real value to both DGLT and stakeholders. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for the opportunity to run through that very quickly.
Okay.
Are there any questions for that?
Thank you. So once again, I need to repeat it, but the board has under its own mandate that it was given to us in the previous triennium by the council, which still stands, the right to remunerate themselves. So number 3 here is only an endorsement. It says to remunerate the board members be endorsed. They don't even need our endorsement, but I think it would be nice that we either do or don't, so they have a clear steer. And I once again say that we should move 1 to 3, and that number 4 we should leave for our annual plan discussions later in the meeting. And the only reason for that is when we get to the annual plan discussion, you can say you want to put it in, that's fine. Or you can turn around and say, Destination Lake Taupo, would you mind coming back and submitting to the annual plan process? That's the 2 ways money goes out of this empire. So that's all I'm asking. And if you're in agreement, would I have a mover, please, for suggested resolutions 1 to 3? Is that a movement? Councillor, is it a movement? I didn't mean that. That's a hand up. Councillor Johnson, so moved. A second, ready, Wee? Seconded. Councillor Hickling. All those in favour? Aye. Aye. So carried. So that's carried to that stage, and we'll address number 4, the increase, as I said, in the annual plan discussion. And can I thank you both, Scott, and you, Michelle. Thank you very, very much for the in-depth presentation here today. And would you also pass on our thanks to the rest of the board, and in particular, of course, Shaman O'Sullivan. And I do know from personal experience, he is spending 30 hours a week at the moment. He loves Taupo. His heart's in the right place. He actually has great expertise. He knows what he's doing. So that should go for the rest of the board members too. So keep up the good work, and let's hear the good figures. Let's get proper key indicators so we do know where we're going. But I want to say one more time too, because I know we're on webcam, I know the media's in the room, that Taupo airport figures are 30% up in the last 4 months. Now, 30% increase in visitors through that airport is magnificent as far as I'm concerned. So thank you very much. On behalf of all the council too, by the way. So moving now, team, please, to agenda item number 3, which is confirmation of council minutes held on the 15th of February 2001. Firstly, I'd just like to ask if there's any amendments to the any amendments or alterations to those minutes before I call for a mover. That's as they're recorded, or spelling mistakes or anything of that ilk. There being none, I will call for a mover. To being true and correct minutes.
Move to worship.
So moved, Councillor Hickling, seconded Councillor Williams. All in favour? Carried. Any matters arising or discussion bearing from those minutes, please?
Your Honour,
Your Honour.
Sounded good. No, the actual dog pound, the leasing of that has fallen through.
Hang on, that was in confidence.
No, it was released from confidence.
Oh, yeah.
And the option that we considered at that particular time was one, to lease, or if that was not to proceed, then to sell. So now that the lease has fallen through, council consider that we looked at selling the site.
I don't think it would take a lot of consideration, Mr. Manhennett, because this council completely supports selling by open and transparent means any excess property that it owns, so as we can reduce debt. So looking around the room, unless somebody's got something other to say, I think you could take it as said that you may look for a buyer at your leisure, but faster sooner than later is best. Any other minutes arising? Councillor Craig? Okay, so now moving at this stage, I just need to bring, because of protocols and processes, something that we want to discuss is actually still in confidence. So what I have to do, I want to bring forward a confidential item number 29, which will enable the release of previous confidential resolutions, and in particular resolution number 4421, which is to be discussed as part of another item later in this meeting. So I need to get a mover and a seconder to exclude the public while we just bring that out of confidence, and then the public can come back in. So could I have a mover, please? Moves Councillor Johnson, seconded Councillor Truman. All in favour? Aye. If we could just ask the public to leave the room, we're just going to take something out of confidence. It should only be a matter of a couple of minutes, and you'll be welcome back in, and that includes you, Mr. Watson, but you'll be welcome back in a minute.
Webcam.
The wrong Mr. Watson too. That's right.
Watson's now.
And the webcam.
We got two. And turn webcam off, please, somebody.